is Notsam Wrestling.
Introducing your host from New York, here is Sam Roberts.
Welcome to Notsam Wrestling. Let's start off another week on that road to WrestleMania, coming fresh off Elimination Chamber. Welcome to the show. Coming at you from the Notsam studio. I mean, seconds after the Elimination Chamber has gone off the air. Steve Kern is on TV talking about FCW, which I guess technically it's premiering now, but it's been on WWE Network for like, I don't know, at least 12 hours now, so best believe I've already seen it. And we'll talk about that. My pal Dave Lagreca from Busted Open is going to be on the show today. What a Notsam Wrestling we have for you, but I felt it necessary to come at you as quickly as I could following the Chamber. Following everything that happened after Elimination Chamber. And keep in mind, I haven't sat with it yet. Right? If this show came out on like a Tuesday or something, it would be much easier because then I'd have 24 hours. I could sit with how I felt about it. I could read, all your comments in the Discord room. I could look at my app mentions, the whole thing. But no, that's not how we do things here. We start the week out with Notsam Wrestling. And I got to tell you my immediate reflections of the Elimination Chamber. I think something that really struck a lot of people was the fact that for the majority of the Women's Chamber match, the match that main evented the show, and the match that really, well, I'll talk about that, that people were sitting on their hands for a lot of that match, that a lot of non-reactions were happening. And, I mean, it's kind of hard to blame Philly for some of that. Keep in mind now, the show's been going since 6:30 or so is when the first match happened. It's now 4 hours in. You've been sitting there for 4 hours now. So, but plus it's daylight savings. Everybody's tired anyway. But beyond all that, the makeup of the Women's Elimination Chamber match didn't leave you with much. I mean, unfortunately, it is what it is. Sarah Logan has only recently even been on Raw. The idea that people would go crazy to see Sarah Logan on a pay-per-view, I don't think that you would think that that would happen. This is a person who's been on main event for most of the time leading up to this, and then popped back onto TV, in the last 3 or 4 weeks, I suppose. You've got Ruby Riott, who's only been back 2 weeks, I think, 2 or 3 weeks, which is exciting that she's back, but a storyline, a real storyline involving Ruby Riott hasn't happened yet since she's been back. And the only rivalry, which is Ruby Riott versus Liv Morgan, like the match already happened with Sarah Logan as the referee. Like it's so you don't even have that unknown of what's going to happen when the Riott Squad combusts because we already know. We already had Ruby Riott versus Liv Morgan with Sarah Logan as the referee. Liv Morgan, while I think she could be an X factor depending on situations, I think that if this were happening right after the Lana thing, then maybe. But I think people are waiting with Liv, too, to see what is the next thing, right? You've got Natalya, who I think people are always going to have a level of respect for. And then at the end of the day, you've really got the people this match was about, which is Shayna Baszler and Asuka. And even with Asuka there, I think the main reason why people were quiet going into this match is because, as I said on the bump, it wasn't shtick when I said it on the bump. It was a foregone conclusion. Nobody thought that anybody besides Shayna Baszler would win this match. There was no conversation of anybody besides Shayna Baszler coming out. Nobody saw WrestleMania going to be Becky Lynch versus Natalya. Nobody thought it was going to be Becky Lynch versus Asuka. Here's the problem. At one point, Becky Lynch is sitting there watching the pay-per-view, standing up for whatever reason. She could have been sitting. But she had her jacket on, right? She had this leather jacket on. And on the leather jacket, she has logos on the sleeve of various women that she's already defeated. Two of the logos on her sleeve were in the chamber. If those logos are already on the sleeve, it was Natalia's logo was at the bottom of the sleeve, and Asuka's logo was on the sleeve. These are people that have already been conquered. I can't sit here and realistically believe that Becky Lynch, the biggest female name in wrestling, is going to go to WrestleMania to take on somebody that she has already conquested. So Natalya and Asuka are taken out. There's no way it's Liv Morgan. There's definitely no way it's Sarah Logan, unless you've got huge plans for Ruby Riott. That's the only real X factor. That Shayna Baszler was a red herring, and what you didn't realize is we had these massive plans for Ruby Riott. And it could be interesting. You know, I could see a world where you spend the next 4 weeks building and building and building Ruby Riott to the point where you think she actually has a shot against Becky Lynch. It could happen. Could. But probably wouldn't, right? Nobody thought that Shayna Baszler wasn't going to win this match. So, you know, and I'm not saying she shouldn't have won. It's what people wanted. I also think there was this idea, you know, a lot of people thought maybe Nia Jax would make an appearance. They thought there would be some kind of surprise in the match because they so clearly knew what was going to happen. I don't think anybody realized how dominant Shayna Baszler would be. I thought that the portrayal of Shayna Baszler in this match was really excellent. You know, I thought that they did enough to protect Asuka in the sense that nobody was any kind of match for Shayna Baszler except Asuka, right? So the fact that she was even sort of a match for Asuka puts her on a different level than the other 4 women that Shayna Baszler was able to take out. So, you know, based on where Asuka's been in the last couple years, I was actually okay with it. As big of an Asuka fan as I am, I was like, yeah, I mean, you know what this match is about. And the fact that Asuka got any offense in whatsoever was good. You know, I think Shayna Baszler is being packaged to be shown as the female Brock, which I said up and down. You know, people said Ronda Rousey's the female Brock. I said Ronda Rousey is not the female Brock, was never the female Brock. Ronda Rousey is a human being with emotions, somebody that people look up to as a role model. There's layers to Ronda Rousey. Brock is a monster and he's a beast, and that's it. Ronda Rousey was never a female Brock Lesnar. Shayna Baszler could be. You know, and I think that that's what this is about. That said, when you have a match where everybody knows who's going to win, and it really just becomes an Elimination Chamber match about one person, I don't know if that's the match that you put on last. Because it leaves you going like, you walk in thinking it's going to go a certain way. It goes exactly how you thought it was going to go. And then you go to bed and you're like, huh, okay, well, I guess Raw will be good. You know, it's almost like you could have done that you could have brought the Chamber and done the Elimination Chamber match on SmackDown. Because it wasn't this big chapter. It was, yeah, I guess we had to get through this. I would think that originally, probably, the original plan was to have the men's Elimination Chamber match go on last because theoretically that might be a little tougher to call. But I think at the end of the day, everybody would have known that Roman Reigns was going to win that match, and that's why the men's Elimination Chamber match in the traditional sense probably didn't happen. That's why, you know, last week we found out it was a tag team championship match because it gets to the point where you're like, look, we can't have 2 Elimination Chamber matches that everybody clearly knows what's going to happen. It's the exact same story in both matches. Let's switch it. Let's just announce it's Goldberg versus Roman Reigns. And I'm like, okay. You know, I'm not even mad at that because I'm like, I would have asked that question. I would have sat here today and said, we've now got these 2 Elimination Chamber matches that were really just obstacles that a person had to get through. They just became storytelling devices. They weren't moments that stood on their own at all. So I think that's why people were kind of sitting on their hands in that match. I think the match did exactly what it was supposed to do. I think Shayna Baszler comes out looking, you know, $1 million strong. Anybody that wasn't familiar with her NXT work, which is probably more than you assume, now sees that, okay, we've got a real threat here. And you can go into WrestleMania. Now, because of the way this Elimination Chamber match, it's very similar to how we talk about Brock. And the way that Brock has been portrayed over the years leaves it so he could conceivably beat just about anybody. The way that Shayna Baszler was portrayed in this Elimination Chamber match, it leaves you to feeling as though she could go into WrestleMania and beat Becky Lynch. And that's exactly what you want. So I think ultimately it was a complete success for where you want to go with it. I just think for tonight as a standalone, like that match that match will go on a Shayna Baszler highlight reel. That match won't go on a list of great Elimination Chamber matches. There's no other match on the card that you could have ended that show with and had it made a lick of sense whatsoever. So, I can't even sit here. I just think that might be why people feel a certain way. I'm looking to see in the Discord room now. If there's any questions, feel free to drop them in as we're recording. But yeah, so congratulations to Shayna Baszler. It did go how it should have gone, but I think we all saw it coming a mile away. I think I know, as I was watching the show, in my opinion, there were 3 winning moments of the show. I can tell you, to me, who had the best chamber, who had the best night. I can tell you what was definitely match of the night. And I can tell you what was the most newsworthy item of the night. So the most newsworthy item of the night, and to me the most unexpected item, though the item that makes the most sense probably, is Sami Zayn walking out with the Intercontinental Championship. Loved it. Not predictable. I think walking in, and I kind of alluded to this when I was on the bump, walking in, it was kind of this sort of exhausting. We all know how good Shinsuke Nakamura, Cesaro, and Sami Zayn are. Anybody against those 3 should not win, but you just know Braun's going to win. And then he doesn't. Sami Zayn actually leaves with the title. And it was one of those things where I was like watching, thinking, oh, is something going to happen? Is Braun going to jump up and come back from the dead? Is the referee going to realize somebody's foot was on the rope? Like sitting there watching going, wait, something's got to give here. Something's got to give here. Something's got to give here. And when it didn't, I was like, oh my God, what a moment. That was great. That's wrestling. You know what I mean? Those moments when you go, it would make perfect sense if this happened, but I don't think it will. And then it does. And you go, yes, I love it. Because now I want to see where this goes. Now we've got some story. Now this is more than just Braun Strowman's a monster. Now he's got a real cause. And Sami Zayn is now walking into WrestleMania with the same wrestling gear that General Adnan wore, with those baggy cargo pants. Ridiculous look, but perfect for the Sami Zayn of 2020. Now we've got this scenario where Sami Zayn is walking into WrestleMania as the Intercontinental Champion. What does that mean? Well, I'm going to tune into SmackDown and find out. I didn't see it coming. I was ready to just kind of go like, okay, yep, Braun wins, got it. I remember how this goes. And when it didn't happen, it was like, great. And I think that this show needed stuff like that. Because besides that match, the rest of the show, in terms of results, was very, very predictable. I think that not in a bad way necessarily, very, very predictable in the sense that really there's only one way that most of these matches could have gone without kind of being destructive to at least one, if not both parties. Whether it was the opening match, the U.S. title match, the tag elimination chamber match, the Alistair match, everything. The Raw tag team title match, you kind of knew where everything, or at least I did, where everything was going to go. So I like that there was this one moment that still made sense. Braun Strowman doesn't come across any weaker. Sami Zayn is more of a weasel than ever. So there's nothing really to complain about with that. I like that moment existed. So that was my moment of the night. That was my winning moment. My winning superstar of the night, I don't think you could even question it. If you say, what superstar won the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view? should be an easy one going off in everybody's head right now. I'll give you 2 seconds. 1, 2. You got it? It's Drew Gulak. Clearly, it is Drew Gulak. You're talking about a guy who has been putting on great performances for a very long time now. When he had that run as Cruiserweight champion for 205 Live, every Cruiserweight title match that they put on kickoff shows was excellent. Every promo that he was doing on 205 Live, the PowerPoints, the anti-flying campaign, all of it was brilliant. I mean, Drew Gulak is like this hidden little piece of gold that WWE has had for a long time with just no sort of idea how to use it. You know, I think Drew Gulak, when he's done being in the ring, it could potentially be an incredible manager to somebody. Because his promos are great. He's charismatic. He's just a natural heel. He's awesome. But tonight, he ends up in this match with Daniel Bryan, which if you've been watching SmackDown, you've been seeing this Daniel Bryan, Drew Gulak story work throughout the weeks. Drew Gulak jumping on commentary during Daniel Bryan matches. Always doing a good job, by the way. And you're going, well, where's this leading? Like, there's no way they're just going to do Drew Gulak versus Daniel Bryan at the Chamber, right? And then a couple days ago, on Friday, we find out wrong. As a matter of fact, absolutely. Daniel Bryan challenges Drew Gulak to a match at the Chamber. And I thought it was fantastic. I thought they had the crowd the whole time. Daniel Bryan made Drew Gulak look like $1 million. The amount of offense that Drew Gulak got in throughout that match, and the fact that it was believable. I thought the commentators were pretty good telling that story. You know, Graves and Michael Cole explaining how Drew Gulak had told Heath Slater to work on the leg a couple of weeks ago, and now Drew Gulak was in there working on the leg himself. Like, you got a sense of why this match was happening. And then you got to see this really incredible wrestling match happening right in the ring. Ironically, between two guys who at a point both heard, you would never wrestle on a WWE pay-per-view. What are you, crazy? I think it's an interesting point for Daniel Bryan because I think that this match almost acts as a kind of a refresher. You know, I think that the rivalry with The Fiend brought in this new Daniel Bryan character, you know, where he's shaven down, he's shorn, and he's a good guy again. And I think that this match is a transitional match for Daniel Bryan, where he just has this great match where he's clearly the good guy, the other guy's clearly the bad guy, has a sign of respect for Gulak at the end of the thing, and then he goes off. And I think going into WrestleMania, he'll probably do something else, and he'll probably start to inch up towards that, you know, upper tier category. And who knows what comes next for Drew Gulak. But I think he exposed himself to an entirely new audience. I bet there are a lot of people watching Elimination Chamber that had no idea, had never seen a Drew Gulak match before. And believe it or not, to those of us who just inundate ourselves with wrestling content, I'll bet there were a lot of people who hadn't seen a Drew Gulak match before tonight. And now they have. You know? And they've seen him at his best. He delivered 110%. I don't know what more that anybody could have asked for from Drew Gulak, but I think he was the superstar of the night. And for me, match of the night was actually Aleister Black versus AJ Styles. I thought just as a match, it was a fantastic match, even before the Undertaker appearance, which I'll talk about in a second because I liked the way that was done. But like there were many moments, like the trip when Aleister gave AJ that shin kick when they were standing on the table, and he knocks his shins up in the air, which leads to AJ just pancaking face first on the table. Just watching at home, I was like, whoa. I thought that match, top to bottom, was great. And it was one of those things, that the Undertaker appearance was one of those things where I'll speak for myself. I thought this would be a good moment for The Undertaker to appear. But the thing about The Undertaker is you don't know. It is so special and so protected when The Undertaker shows up that you can never take for granted that he'll just be there. But he was. Of course, he put AJ Styles down for the choke slam. I liked that, like, the lights went out and Undertaker appeared and Aleister Black disappeared. Then the lights went out again and Undertaker disappeared and Aleister Black reappeared. Almost like there was some soul sharing going on, some shape shifting, something where they're somehow the darkness intertwines and connects the Undertaker and Aleister Black. That was well done. Of course, we know, based on 2 instances now, that AJ Styles simply cannot get up after a chokeslam. And the Undertaker, as long as AJ Styles has been in the game and as good as his defenses are, there is nothing AJ Styles can do to stop an Undertaker chokeslam. It's never going to happen. If he gets to WrestleMania and the Undertaker wraps those hands around his neck, AJ Styles is Dunsky. Undertaker doesn't even have to take off his coat. He did this time. He didn't have a coat on. But even if he had left his coat on, chokeslam AJ Styles, AJ's done for the night. Happened at Super Showdown. Happened again tonight. Aleister Black got the win. It's left a lot of people, and you know, we'll find out more tonight on Raw. I'm assuming that that's when the match will actually get made. I would lean more towards the idea of it would appear that we're going to do an Aleister Black Undertaker tag team against the OC in 3-on-2 style. I would imagine that that's where they're going. But at the same time, I mean, there hasn't been any interaction between Aleister Black and The Undertaker, which leads me to believe that since Aleister Black got the victory over AJ Styles, if they wanted to make it a singles match, they still could. If they wanted to just make it Undertaker versus AJ Styles at WrestleMania, and now Aleister Black has conquered AJ Styles and he's off to do something else, I don't think that would be a disruptive thing. I think that that would be okay. You know, I think that we could leave this going. I'd love to see Undertaker and Aleister team up. We could also leave saying, you know, Aleister and AJ are done competing, and nobody would sit there going like, that feels unfinished. You go, okay, if you're telling me it's finished now, it's finished now. I think up until tonight, I definitely said that I would have preferred an Undertaker-AJ Styles singles match. But I'm starting to really dig the idea of Aleister Black and The Undertaker as a team. I think it would be really good for Aleister Black. And yeah, and I just think it could be a cool thing to see the two of them together. And you always talk about the torch being passed. People always talk about the torch being passed as if that happens when a guy gets beat, right? Warrior beats Hogan, Hogan passes the torch to Warrior, right? But that's not necessarily the case. I mean, The Undertaker teaming with Aleister Black could be a symbolic passing of the torch right there. You know, that's one of those things where Aleister Black, because in my opinion, AJ Styles is not beating The Undertaker at WrestleMania. Whether it's tag team or singles, AJ Styles is designed to be able to have a great match with The Undertaker, lose, and not look weaker for it. That's just, I mean, he's the phenomenal one. He can handle it. In a tag team, however, that does lead to the criticism that you're using legends to just for the sake of using legends. Like, you're not, if that's the case, you're not having legends come in to build up your current roster. You're actually using your current roster to build up legends, which is bass-ackwards. If it's a tag team match, even if The Undertaker gets the pin over AJ Styles, the idea that Aleister and The Undertaker lift their arms up together, well, now you have, theoretically, passed the torch to Aleister Black to some extent. So I think that actually could be a really good thing. Some of your feedback on Elimination Chamber coming from the coach, Adair, in the Discord room. Coach in front row are talking about Lince Dorado having a strong night. Yeah, he did. I loved that off the ceiling spot, the shooting star press off the roof of the chamber. I actually thought Lucha House Party as a team did really well in that tag team chamber match. I saw some of your questions about my take on the SmackDown Tag Team Championships being defended in the chamber. Again, I assumed it would go down exactly as it went down with, I loved more Miz putting the figure four and then Morrison doing the Starship Pain while Miz had the figure four applied. I thought that was great. That teamwork was really good. Clearly, people thought that they squeaked by. I think that's how people should feel, that they did just kind of squeak by. But, I also think that the Miz and Morrison as a team have been damaged by losing twice since winning the tag team championship. They won the tag team championship at Super Showdown. The next night, they lost to the Usos. The week after that, they go into the tag team gauntlet, which they should never have been in the tag team gauntlet. I think that the Miz and Morrison should have gotten a favored nations clause or a favored treatment where they ended up, without even being in a gauntlet match, they ended up as the last people to go in because they're the champs. The idea that the champs would be in a gauntlet match, I feel like to me, when Dolph and Robert Roode won the gauntlet match, I feel like they can sit there and say, well, we should be the tag team champions because the tag champions were in this gauntlet match and they lost. And the Usos are like, well, there's now a competition between multiple teams on the roster as to who has beaten the tag team champions worst. Or worse, when the tag team champions have only been the tag team champions for 2 weeks. You know what I mean? That's why I think there's a disconnect right now. And I think leading to WrestleMania, the Miz and Morrison have to come across a lot stronger. They have to start winning matches against people. You have to. The champions have to, at some point, have to win matches. And I don't think this one counted. They need to go and a bell rings and they have a match and they win the match. And then people might be like, okay, I guess they are the tag team champions. It's funny, if you look at the video, there's a social video that The Bump tweeted out, and Matt Camp from The Bump asked me as I was putting my picture up on the Bump wall there in Stamford. He said, what do you see as Kevin Owens' path to WrestleMania? And I said, well, Kevin Owens is the reason why Murphy, I actually said Buddy, and then in the subtitles they wrote Murphy, which I think is funny. But is the reason why Murphy and Rollins lost the tag titles of the Street Profits. He is the one that cost them the titles. I think he's probably going to be the reason that they don't win at Elimination Chamber, and then Rollins will have a bone to pick with him. And I think that's, I thought that that's what was going to happen. That is what happened. I think Seth Rollins versus Kevin Owens is going to be your WrestleMania match. I'm good with that. As a person who was watching Ring of Honor in the Age of the Fall era, I'm very good with, Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins being a big match at WrestleMania. So, I'm fine with that. It went as I thought it would go, and it allows, I think it frees up the tag team championships for a team like the Street Profit I said championships, I pluralized it. It frees up the tag team championship for a team like the Street Profits to dominate over a division that they can actually dominate over. When you've got a guy who's a main eventer like Seth Rollins, who is a discussion piece for the WWE Championship, when he enters himself in the tag division and wins the tag championship, then it becomes difficult for all the tag teams because there are no tag teams in the WWE that are sort of more fearsome than the heavyweight champion of the world. So I think that having that main event singles guy removed from the tag division allows the tag division to exist. I think maybe the Street Profits versus the Authors of Pain might be a very good tag team championship match to do at WrestleMania. You do the Street Profits versus the Authors of Pain, and then you do Kevin Owens versus Seth Rollins, and Seth Rollins has Murphy in his corner. I think that's where I would probably go with that. What else? Front Row says, do you think we'll see Undertaker versus AJ or perhaps Undertaker? Oh, yeah, I covered that. What would your matches be for WrestleMania? Got that. Where do you see the Kabuki Warriors going to WrestleMania? That is a good question because I think that that's where you have to go. I think that now we took a kind of a break. Look, here's the thing. Asuka was in a very bad place 6 months ago or so. Asuka had a great Royal Rumble 2019 and then lost the SmackDown Women's Championship before WrestleMania. And from that point on, from the point that Charlotte won the SmackDown Women's Championship until really the end of 2019, until really the Kabuki Warriors formed and they won the Women's Tag Team Championship, Asuka was just in a terrible place. She wasn't even on TV for half the time. I think the Kabuki Warriors formation has been really well done. I think seeing Kairi Sane evolve into this character that looks like she could be teaming with Asuka, and them turning heel, I think was a very, very good thing. I think the Green Mist is good. I think, bad guy Asuka is a good place for Asuka to be in right now. They took a break, conceivably, from defending the Women's Tag Team Championships and from there being any real discussion of the Women's Tag Team Championship so that Asuka could go and face Becky Lynch at Royal Rumble and remind people that she is a main event caliber talent. And I think that that's been good for Asuka. I think it's been a good exercise. But I think now we use that before it all goes away. Because she's not going to be in a WrestleMania match. So before it all goes away, I think that you need to have the Kabuki Warriors as a tag team. I mean, starting Monday, starting today, you need to have the Kabuki Warriors put back on that pedestal as a team and move forward that way. I think that that's pretty important to do. And what's the team that could face the Kabuki Warriors at WrestleMania? I don't know. I think it would have to be something that evolves. I mean, I think you got to bring the Iconics back finally and maybe have the Kabuki Warriors beat the Iconics on the way to WrestleMania. Maybe you actually do. Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross put it out there on SmackDown. Maybe Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross versus the Kabuki Warriors is your WrestleMania match. I wouldn't be mad at it. But I think there should be at least 4 women's matches at WrestleMania. I mean, it's a 19-hour show. Why not? Why not you're going to do the NXT championship at WrestleMania. So I think there's now 4 women's championships, all of them in contention at WrestleMania. All 4 of them should be there. Unless you're going to have 2 women from NXT team up and the Kabuki Warriors are going to come down to do TakeOver, which I don't think is going to happen because you got 6 women already in that ladder match. So, I don't think you want your number 7 and number 8 seed teaming up for a tag team championship match at TakeOver. That seems like not a giant event. Even if it's on a kickoff show, and it might be, I think that there's a place for the Kabuki Warriors to defend the women's tag team championships at WrestleMania. And I wouldn't mind tag team championship. I feel like it's in my head because I just did the Cultaholic show and I said that was one of my pet peeves, and now I'm pluralizing it because I don't like it. But I think that, having the Kabuki Warriors defend the tag team championship at WrestleMania is a must. And I don't know, I could see them running through some tag teams on Raw, only for Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross to be like, okay, time to Nikki cross that line over to SmackDown and give us the opportunity at WrestleMania. So those are my thoughts. If you haven't seen the FCW documentary on the WWE Network, I would absolutely check it out. I thought it was really, really good. It's not a series. It's just a documentary. It's about an hour, 20 minutes. And, I mean, it's awesome. You're talking about Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Sasha Banks, Bayley, Corey Graves, Sheamus, Drew McIntyre. I mean, everybody that went through that program. That was like when they shut down OVW, before they opened Raw, NXT, that whole generation, Fandango. So check it out if you get a chance. Right now, I want to welcome in a friend of mine to talk about everything leading up towards WrestleMania season and a lot of the stuff we've been talking about on the podcast lately. His name is David Lagreca. You may see his big fat head in the audience of wrestling events constantly, whether it be WWE, whether it be AEW. The Lagreca head makes its appearance at more shows than not these days. Busted Open has become a huge show on SiriusXM. It's Dave every day, and he's hosting with either Bully Ray or Mark Henry or Tommy Dreamer based on the day. I know a lot of you guys that listen to this show listen to that show, and I wanted to have him come down to the Notsam studio to talk some wrestling. So that's what we're going to do right now here on Not Sam Wrestling. Hey guys, we'll get to the Dave Lagreca conversation in just a minute, but imagine getting to hear this podcast the second that Elimination Chamber was over last night. Imagine that. Early access to the show. Imagine not having to hear this advertisement right now. Imagine if you got another Not Sam Wrestling show every single week, twice a week instead of once a week. Well, you don't have to imagine that if you're a Not Sam shill. Everybody on our Patreon page already gets to experience all those things I just listed. Patreon.com/NotSamWrestling is the spot to be if you want to become a Not Sam shill. Thursday, Not Sam Thursday, the Thursday podcast available exclusively there. This podcast comes out early and ad-free, exclusively there. The early podcast, the additional Thursday bonus show available to every tier over at patreon.com/NotSamWrestling. That means for less than $1 a week, you can get double the podcast and you can get it earlier. You add a couple more bucks in, you can watch me tape the show live. You can interact. You can watch video of everything that we do. There's merch offers. There's live show offers. Everything you could imagine at patreon.com/NotSamWrestling. Plus, every single tier gets access to our exclusive Discord room where you can talk to listeners of this show about wrestling 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It was bumping for Elimination Chamber. You should have been there, and you could have been there if you were a Not Sam shill. Sign up today at patreon.com/NotSamWrestling. My friend, host of Busted Open on SiriusXM, icon of the fathead era, Dave Lagreca is finally here in the Not Sam studio. We should have done this a long time ago.
Of course. I can't believe you never invited me. I was actually, this invitation, I didn't take it lightly. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I'm so excited to have you, mainly because, you know, I have a Patreon audience for Not Sam Wrestling. And they're in the we set up a Discord room for them. And they're in that Discord room 24 hours a day. And like it drives me crazy to the point where I was like, I set this room up so you guys could talk about my show. And I'm not kidding you or blowing smoke. Every single morning at 9 a.m. while I'm doing my radio show, by the way, people in the Discord room start chiming in. Busted Open's on. Guess who's in today? And I'm like, look, I know that you guys are wrestling fans, and Busted Open is an amazing show. But could you at least like get this excited about my show that the room is named after?
Yeah, I understand that. You know? And I don't even know. I don't even know what a Discord is, but it's good to hear that there's people who enjoy listening to me are on it.
Right.
I think Discord is something I try to keep my daughter off of.
Okay,
she's 16. Like that's like one of the things to keep the teenagers off of. Am I right? Discord, right?
That is one of those things where you go home and you go like, I don't want you on the Reddit or the Discord, and it just makes you sound out of touch. Okay, Dad.
And you always put the in front of it, so it's the Discord.
Reddit, the Discord, get off the YouTube.
Yeah,
You're like,
YouTube.
What? But it's tough, and that's why we have this world of wrestling to escape into, right?
That's right. And you know what? This studio is amazing. I love it.
Come on, thank you.
The TV, the people who are watching this on video, it doesn't do justice. This is pretty amazing.
I appreciate
that.
Yeah. I appreciate that. It was, I thought it was necessary when we moved into a place with space that wasn't a one-bedroom apartment anymore. I said, there has to be a studio. And there should be a Not Sam studio, to do stuff like this in. I'm also glad that you're here because there's this phenomenon that's been happening over the last year or so, but it really started picking up in October when people started to kind of draw lines in the sand as to who they were supporting. And that is that for a really long time, I had the market cornered on being a shill.
Mm-hmm.
It was now
I know why you invited me.
That was the conversation. Like, we like everybody who does wrestling shows except Sam Roberts because he's a shill. And then I got to WWE and started doing kickoff shows, and people were like, I used to like Sam, but now he's a shill. And I was like, you said it before. You're not hurting my feelings now. Like, nothing's changed, right? But the phenomenon that's happened is this shill thing has started to creep in, and it makes me happy. Because everybody that wasn't a shill before, when it was just me, now everybody's getting it.
Yeah.
Like, I see it all the time. And I saw it with you very recently. Because I did a whole podcast before Super Showdown explaining, kind of trying to brace people of going, look, Bill Goldberg may very well win the Universal Championship, and here's exactly why and how it wouldn't be that bad. And that's exactly what happened. And then I came on the next week and said, look, John Cena versus The Fiend is not bad for The Fiend, and this is going to be okay. And, people were, destroying me and whatnot. But it made me feel warmer. It made me feel like there was more company. When I saw
company
on Busted Open, you guys were having a very similar conversation and saying, look, this is a good spot for The Fiend, and you just got lambasted.
I got my first death threat. I've never had a death threat before, and I got over Bray Wyatt and John Cena and Goldberg is when I got my first death threat. See, you have it easier than I do because
why? Because I get death threats all the time,
yes.
So it's like, who cares?
So it's like now you're used to it. No, but you're you get labeled a WWE shill.
Right.
I'm a AEW mark and a WWE shill.
Oh, you get them both.
I get it from both sides. I have no safe place.
Right.
I'm used to being called an AEW mark. That's what I'm called the most.
Okay.
But that was like the first time that I was labeled a WWE shill. To the point now, people think that I'm getting paid by the WWE to spread their propaganda.
Right. Like, and you're probably going to pop up on a pre-show pretty soon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's convinced of that at some point. First of all, you and I both know that that's not going to happen because I'm not their demographic. They don't like anybody over the age of a certain age, and I'm over that age. I mean, they don't want somebody with a full, gray hair on top of their head. I'm 48 years old. I'm really not expecting a phone call, and honestly, I don't know if I would want a phone call from the WWE. I didn't grow up a WWE fan. I was an NWA guy.
Right.
So I get more joy from being...
You're waiting for that Billy Corgan call.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the Billy Corgan call more than I'm waiting for the Vince McMahon
I mean, look,
call.
if they're going to... and they may not have the same biases that you're worried about. If they're hiring Sean Mooney...
Yeah, I love it because I get all the time. Oh, your favorite show's AEW. Oh, your favorite show's... I said, no, my favorite show's NWA Power. That's always like the safe answer.
NWA Power is, I think, right now in wrestling, the one thing that's safe to support. And it won't last, by the way.
Oh, no.
It won't last. It never does. But right now, it's safe to support NWA Power. I'll bring it up on the podcast. I've had Billy Corgan on, obviously. Mm-hmm. Everybody can acknowledge that the product is great, but it's also there's something non-threatening about it in the sense that because it's doing its own thing completely. There doesn't feel like they're trying to get eyes from anywhere. They're not taking eyes away.
They're not competing with anybody.
They're not competing with anybody, but at some point, it will build up enough butts because it's such a good show that it will start to feel like, well, now you can't like something else.
No, yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now you're okay. So if it's like a WWE shill or an AEW mark, I don't know what NWA is going to get their hands on.
I don't know. I think a big part of it is that it's not on television. It's it's on
that's
YouTube,
true.
It's streaming. Like if they ever got a TV deal,
yeah,
that's when it would explode. And people would get angry,
especially because there is no day that they could go on and not be competing with wrestling at this point.
Yeah, every day there's something.
Right. You're like, oh, you're just competing with WWE backstage or something like
yeah,
that. Well, Tuesdays at 11.
How can you? Wait a second, I'm a WWE backstage guy.
But so you were, but you stand by what you said. You think that that the Fiend John Cena pairing is a good WrestleMania pairing.
Yes, and I thought they did a great job explaining that on Firefly Funhouse this past Friday.
Yep. Did they actually they dove headfirst in? They're not sort of just dancing around the fact that there was this history a few years ago because Bray looked different then, and we're not. No, it's here's the footage.
Yeah, this is it, WrestleMania 30,
yeah.
And they kind of explained everything that you and I have been talking about. Even Bully, like you said, you braced your audience. Hey, this is about to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing Bully Ray did on Busted Open. He's like, this is gonna happen. This is how it's gonna play out. Brace yourself, and then it happens, and everybody's like, my head's on fire. But you know what? It makes perfect sense, and it's aligned perfectly for everything the WWE wants to happen,
mm-hmm.
and ultimately, I think is going to be satisfying for the fan as well if they give it the time and patience to let it play out.
It was and it was driving me a little crazy. There are people Hot Dog, my guy Hot Dog.
I love Hot Dog.
I love Hot Dog
every morning.
too. But he's very annoying. He has these annoying takes, and he's insisting. And to this day, I had a conversation with him on Friday about it. he insists that people would have been fine with Roman Reigns beating The Fiend. And I'm like, on what planet? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Because, and this is where I really got called out for being a shill. I mean, this week. That this was my shill, my shill take of the week this week that I said, and I wasn't even necessarily advocating for it. I was just saying this is how it's going to go, and this is why. That you go, well, The Fiend got buried at Super Showdown. How do you ever recover from that? And I said, I'll tell you how you recover from it. You never talk about it again. You just don't talk about Super Showdown. And that's exactly what happened. That we're talking about Bill Goldberg as champion, but we're not talking about the match with The Fiend. And that's not necessarily to erase the fact that it ever happened. It's just to say, that's not what we're focusing on. Just put your energy elsewhere. And I think that it's a way to help The Fiend. And people go, well, you can't just erase chapters in a book. And I go, okay, all right, fine. You can't erase a chapter in a book, but look at any movie franchise. Depending on how far you get, if you get 10 parts into a movie franchise, like there are Fast and the Furious movies that you don't really talk about. You don't talk about Tokyo Drift so much. You know what I mean? You don't even really talk about the first 4 movies, right? Because now we're in a different place, and let's not even bring up the weird stuff that happened before. Let's just enjoy this part. And that's, I think, how you have to look at what WWE does sometimes. That some of those sequels you just don't bring up because you like the original so much.
And that's fine, and you could definitely go that route, but I don't even think you have to go that deep because I think the only mistake they made was putting a championship title on Bray Wyatt. They should
begin with.
Yeah, they should never have done that. I thought that was a big mistake. They kind of painted themselves into a corner, but even like you're saying, hey, don't talk about the match at Super Showdown in Saudi, like the loss to Goldberg. But I think it's even okay to go back to that because how did that segment end? With Bray Wyatt with The Fiend on his feet.
And angry.
Yes, and angry. And then he sent out a tweet the next day saying it was a sacrifice. Because ultimately what he wants, his goal, is John Cena.
Right. He knew John Cena was coming back.
Yes.
It was announced. Even and you could say, well, how do you know John Cena was going to go to WrestleMania? John Cena wasn't going to go to WrestleMania.
He wasn't. He said that he wasn't.
Right.
This wasn't for him anymore. There's a lot of young talent on this roster. It should be their moment.
I do think that we need to hear from John Cena at some point as to why the sudden, like, all somebody had to do was point at a sign. And John Cena's like, all right, yeah, no, I'll do it. Like, we do need to hear from John Cena, like, why did that change your mind? Why The Fiend?
And we have four more SmackDowns before we get to WrestleMania where they can do that because no one thought they were going to bring up WrestleMania 30, and they did this past Friday.
Right.
So who knows where they're going to go? And Hot Dog's an idiot.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
that
Hot
is
Dog,
true.
for saying that, but you're 100% wrong. I'm not saying you're an idiot, but your take is because
idiotic take.
Yes, because there is no way that fans would accept Roman Reigns beating The Fiend at WrestleMania.
Yeah,
they would get booed out of the building.
Because Roman Reigns winning the Universal Championship at WrestleMania 36, the WrestleMania after he went away with cancer and came back, this is the moment that Roman Reigns people have been waiting for. Like, this will be, should he win the title. And by the way, it's WWE in 2020, so who really knows? You think.
Yes.
But who really knows? I mean, that's what I was saying this week about Drew McIntyre and Brock Lesnar. The genius of the Brock Lesnar character is like, well, obviously Drew McIntyre is going to win the title. But can you tell me he's not going to lose in 30 seconds?
I mean, there's a part of me, there's a big part of me that thinks Brock Lesnar is going to retain at WrestleMania 36.
Because he did it. I mean, that's the same thing. Remember Roman at 34.
Yep.
Yeah. When everybody was like, well, obviously this is just, I mean, they were booing the match because they were so annoyed that it was just, all right, we'll put the crown on Roman, and then Brock just won.
And here's the other thing too, Sam. I know this is going to be a crazy take.
Hot take.
Is that, you know what? There's a part of me, actually there's all of me, that's rooting for this stuff to happen because I don't want to go into WrestleMania 36 wanting to boo a match or wanting to crap all over something. I want to enjoy WrestleMania 36. I know that sounds crazy.
Right, why?
But, you know, I'm going all the way to Tampa to see this. You know what? I actually want to enjoy it.
Yeah.
So let's see how it plays out.
Yeah.
Can we do that?
Can we just take a second?
Like, I mean, please.
Yeah, take a minute to see how it plays out. Now, the thing about had Roman Reigns beaten The Fiend at WrestleMania, that would be a moment that you would never have been able to erase. Like, it wouldn't have, you would have had to eviscerate The Fiend. Like, that would have been the whole coronation. It wouldn't just be winning the title. It would be finally, this is the end of The Fiend being one of the top guys. The Fiend doesn't get to go on SmackDown the next week and challenge another huge level main event guy because Roman Reigns is declared. He's the guy. The whole buildup of The Fiend over these months was just so Roman could be announced champion. And that's the outcome that you don't want. Not this like, okay, this is now the second wonky Fiend thing that's happened. The first was Hell in a Cell. But the Fiend's a strong enough character that we can get past it. And, 6 years later, I'm sitting there. I remember being in New Orleans at WrestleMania 30 like, what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I was like that too.
We can have, finally, some resolution.
And then next year we could do it with Rusev because what happened at WrestleMania 31.
Rusev comes out in a Halloween mask and beats John Cena.
but if I told you that you're going to get Cena and the Fiend Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania, where he's going to get his revenge at everything that took place at WrestleMania 30, and not only that, they're going to tell you that that's the story, is the redemption from WrestleMania 30. Yeah, goosebumps, right? I mean, and that is basically what you're going to get in Tampa. Let's put the Roman and the Goldberg aside. You're getting the Fiend Bray Wyatt against John Cena. And I've said that, you know what? They should never have put the title on the Fiend Bray Wyatt. And basically, the Fiend Bray Wyatt is telling you that that title didn't mean anything to him.
I mean, you saw what he did to it, the physical.
Yes.
Right? He turned it into a Fiend mask.
Yes, and he was willing to sacrifice. Again, that word sacrifice, which is what he used on social media. Sacrificing that title so he can get the ultimate goal, which is John Cena at WrestleMania. To me, that's brilliant.
And then we can get back there, and he can say, I sacrificed that title, Roman. You're a paper champion.
Yes.
And now
that meant nothing to me.
Right.
Kind of like, we saw that with New Japan, with the Intercontinental title, dragging it on the ground. It doesn't mean anything. This
Just
title
throwing
means
it in the
nothing
ring.
to me.
Yeah.
Because I have other goals in mind. It's the same thing here.
You're saying
His
Bray's
goal-
going full tranquilo.
Well, yeah, and basically for
It is.
this, yes. That title didn't mean anything to him. He wants John Cena, and he was able to goat John Cena into a match at on his terms at WrestleMania
Yeah, he's
36.
successful.
Call me a shill, but I loved it. I love the whole story arc right now.
All right, so you see, now, not only do you have me saying stuff, you've got Lagreca here
The
saying...
AEW mark.
You got an AEW mark on the podcast saying it.
My head's up Cody's ass for crying out
That's
loud.
true.
Yes.
That is true. By the way, how great was Jake Roberts?
Oh, my gosh. I mean...
Uh,
Sam, I know we always say it, and you always have me on your show, and you're like, what do you think of pro wrestling right now? The state of pro wrestling. If you're a wrestler, how could you not be excited about
It's
what's
so much
going
fun.
on right now?
It's so much fun.
And I know people like to fight, and I guess everyone's trying to relive those Monday Night Wars where you're a WCW guy or you're a WWF guy, but ultimately everybody was watching both shows.
Yeah,
Like,
people go like,
you
there was 15 million people watching at the time. No, there wasn't.
There
There was
wasn't.
8 million people that were switching back and forth.
Yes, and I love the fact too that they said that we beat Monday Night Football. No, you didn't beat Monday Night Football. Where do you get it? I think the one time they won was like it was a preseason game. It was like with two teams that nobody was excited about. I mean, I know everybody likes to look at the past, but let's look at the present right now.
And the product that's there.
Yes,
And the fact that, I would say at WrestleMania, even the people that are mad about Roman Goldberg, that's fine because you got 2 title matches. You still got Drew Brock, and I don't see how a wrestling fan could be mad about the way this Drew McIntyre Brock Lesnar story has been told. You can't be. You think Drew and Brock should go on last?
Yeah, I mean, and I'll give a credit to my partner Bully Ray, where he said that match should go on last, and the match that should go on first is Roman and Goldberg. Let that match start the show, because if you let that go throughout however long WrestleMania is going to be, that crowd's going to get anxious, and then you run the risk of them booing the match in general.
Well, so that's what I was going to talk to you about, the booing of the match, because I think that's now what people are kind of focusing on. They're going like, well, now that you've done this, you're going to have, and it's fresh in everybody's mind, like, everybody just watched the Ruthless Aggression documentary on the network. So now everybody thinks, well, we're going to have a repeat of Brock Goldberg, which I'll never forget. I was at Madison Square Garden. Were you there for WrestleMania 20? So you remember what that crowd was like. And I remember I was 20 at the time, watching them going, they can't get past this. Like, they can't. There's just something you could just see in the way Brock and Goldberg were both going. I think they both knew that it was their last time, so their heart wasn't in it. And they couldn't psychologically get past the fact that the fans had taken over. And I don't remember another time that I've seen a match, certainly on that level, where the performers succumb to the fans. It was like watching a comedian get heckler and seeing the heckler win.
Yeah,
Get
just
heckled and seeing the heckler win and seeing him, like, the comedian going, oh, if you think this is so easy, why don't you come up here? And the guy comes up here and does a better job.
Yeah, and then
like,
it's like okay.
But I don't see right now. I don't think that has to happen. I don't see it happening. If I were to predict, I think there will be boos for Roman and there will be boos for Goldberg. And we heard a "You both suck" chant going. But at the same time, you also heard little pops for Roman. Roman didn't get booed out of the building on SmackDown when he was face to face with Goldberg a week ago. But I was saying, and tell me what you think, or if you think it should go different, that I think that if you tell a story where it's like, really real, the way John Cena and The Rock felt like it was really real, where you've got Roman talking about how nobody wants you here, Goldberg. You shouldn't be here. You're taking, you shouldn't be here. Nobody wants to see you here. And, Goldberg saying, like, I'm here so you don't get booed out of another WrestleMania main event. But, like, you really go there. I think you could have fans locked into this thing.
You could go that route, or you just go the human element of Roman Reigns saying, I battled cancer.
Right.
And now I'm back. And, I know there was a lot of fans that were against me, and they could show footage of, WrestleMania 34 in New Orleans where people were booing during, which unfortunately people booed, and maybe even some people left during what I thought was a very good main event at WrestleMania 34.
Roman Brock.
Yeah.
I think they were booing too. And I've gotten people who disagree with me on this, but I think they were booing an outcome that they thought was going to happen, but
which didn't happen.
Right.
Yeah.
And nobody will admit. They were like, no, we're just booing the match. I'm like, no.
And I mean, Roman getting busted open like he did, like it was. Go back and watch that.
You
match.
Named your show after that.
Yeah,
match.
That's right. We were called something else prior to that.
Yeah, you were called the Figure 4 leg
but
lock.
we don't mention that. So
I'm sorry.
we don't mention that so people will forget. But I think if you go that human element where you have a sit down with Roman, and Roman's like, listen, I battled cancer to come back. This is my dream. This is what I wanted. And I know fans rejected it before for whatever reason. But I hope that they can get behind me now because
I'm here. I'm back here for you.
Yes.
Like you brought me back here.
It was you, the fans. And if you remember, too, when he was first diagnosed, everyone was behind Roman.
100%. Because that's when like the realization kicked in where it was like, we're having fun booing Roman, but he really is the biggest star here.
Yes.
And people, whether people want to acknowledge it while a storyline's happening or not, if you could take a step outside of the bubble that we all kind of put ourselves in as wrestling fans and just really kind of look at the forest and say, no, the biggest tree in the forest is Roman. Like, he is the biggest tree.
And he should be.
Yeah.
And, for those fans that booed, WWE did a great job. You got to give him credit for this. They didn't just throw him back in the main event picture and have him go after a title. They've waited this long. They could have did it immediately. Hell, they could, if they wanted to, put Roman in a match last year's WrestleMania for a title, but they didn't do that. Hey, let's take him out of the title picture. Now he's back. Let's bring that story back of why we fell back in love with Roman Reigns and let that be the story. Now, Goldberg's going to get booed out of the building, but that's what we want.
Right, that's the point. Like,
Yes.
that's okay. If Goldberg gets booed out of the building, great. The point is to not have both of them get booed out of the building.
And I think if they go after that, it's going to be hard to boo somebody who fought back and got back where he deserved to be. I think it would be very, very difficult for people to boo him in Tampa.
Yeah, I think that would work too. I mean, bringing people back, doing the work. And again, the 4 weeks, you've got the time to do it. Bringing people back to where they were when he left. And like reminding you, like, how valuable this guy is.
Yes.
You know how much you like this guy.
And he fought back.
Yeah.
He battled cancer.
Yeah.
We've all, lost a loved one to cancer. I mean, he actually did it. This is not a wrestling storyline.
And I also think that there's something to this idea of he took all of the venom that wrestling fans could possibly unleash upon him, and he kept going. You know what I mean? Like, there is something to that. And I think deep down, most wrestling fans see that and go like, yeah, he's one of us. And because I think that's why a lot of people booed him, 6 years ago or whatever, because they were like, he's not here for the right reasons. He's not one of us. He's here.
He's being force fed.
Yeah,
down the
and he's here
throat.
for the money.
Yeah.
And he's just. But I think now people are like, no, he's one of ours, and people know that. And there's a difference in booing somebody because I'm booing him because he's a wrestler that I'm booing, and booing him because I don't like him and he shouldn't be here. And it's a different thing for Roman now. I think.
I agree. And I really hope people enjoy this moment instead of taking the moment away from him. And then ultimately taking the moment away from yourself.
Yeah.
Because like I said, at 34, I thought that was a very good match that people didn't appreciate because of the environment that the match was in.
Yeah. Yeah. When you start booing that, like, I'm okay. Like, they did the same thing technically at WrestleMania 20, right? Like, you didn't.
But that was different.
That was
because
different.
They're out the door.
Right. And how funny is it, too? This is what I was thinking as I was watching that on the Ruthless Aggression special, and I've been thinking about it a lot lately, is that they did get booed out of the building, but it's really interesting to me that was a time when if you left a promotion, you were a heel. Like, the fans hated you for it.
Yeah.
Like, you sold out was a thing that whenever anybody, if you were leaving WWE to go to WCW, if you were leaving wrestling, Brock was going to the football, you sold out. We don't like you because you're leaving. Now, if somebody leaves, good for them. I hope they find what they're looking for. It's really,
let them be happy. They deserve to be happy.
Yeah. And I'm like, what happened?
It's such a, and you know, with social media, it's such a weird dynamic, and there's some great things about social media, but it does bring a lot of negativity. And there's nothing really to be negative about. Now, I know I'm busted open on your show too. We bitch and complain, which is fine.
Right.
You know, you're a football fan. You're a New York Giants fan. Hey, you're a diehard Giants fan. You want them to make a coaching change or make a change at quarterback. That's fine. But you're always going to be a New York Giants fan.
I think there's a difference. And when you complain on your show or when I eventually complain on my show, people are listening going like, when is that going to happen? But at some point, I'll probably complain.
You are a shill.
Yeah. Once the checks stop cashing, I'll complain. But you could hear the difference between somebody who's complaining as a fan and somebody who's just complaining. Like, there are complaints from people that you go, why are you watching? And there are complaints from people where you go, I want to have this conversation with this person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, let's talk about it, and it's okay to have a different take and a different side,
right?
But you know, I always say with this, I'm still a fan of The Walking Dead. I watch The Walking Dead every Sunday.
I mean, that's for me. I watched it. I started complaining about it. I stopped watching it because I realized I'm not complaining as a fan. I think this show sucks.
Yeah, and I like The Walking Dead, and if I stop liking it, I'll stop watching it.
That's what
and a lot of people have. Like, there's very few of us that still watch that show. People didn't like it. They didn't continue to watch it and go online and say how terrible it was. They just stopped watching.
I was like, this show sucks now. I don't want to watch anymore.
There you go. And that's fine.
So, and by the way, I solved the problem. You know how often it bothers me that I don't like Walking Dead anymore? Zero minutes of the day. Because I don't watch it.
There's other things to watch, and there's other things to get into. Like The Affair, the show The Affair on Showtime. I love that show.
Mm-hmm.
It was terrible. I stopped watching. People were like, how could you stop watching? Like, it's the last season. I said, because I hate it now. It's just,
I don't like
it's not
it.
something I enjoy. I don't enjoy it. I don't watch it.
Yeah.
So it's such a weird dynamic when it comes to pro wrestling, because even when it's like, I want, like, you're searching for something. You want something that you're not going to get. Well, if you're not going to get that, then maybe either there's plenty other wrestling. There's MLW, there's NWA, there's AEW. So, or just stop watching.
Or just stop watching altogether.
Yeah.
Maybe you've outgrown it. You and I haven't, but maybe somehow.
Never. Oh my God, how many times do we hear that? You still watch that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
I do.
Yeah. Guess what? I'm on the air and I'm pretty successful.
yeah. I've made a living as just being a fan of it. That's how big this industry is. That it's gotten to the place where just being a fan of it, you can make a living doing that.
Yeah. And I enjoy it to the point where it's, one day it might be taken away from me. Maybe one day it won't be as big. But I'm going to enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride.
It really is weird, though, the ignorance towards wrestling that I still to this day, as big as wrestling has gotten, the ignorance to what it is that doesn't exist for anything else in the natural world. Like, I mean, if you don't watch, you don't get it.
Yeah.
And I don't understand. It's got to be the simplest form of entertainment in the world, and it still is just beyond people. I mean, I've seen people in like suits, like really important, intelligent, successful people who go like, well, I can't see myself watching wrestling because it's all fake. I like Ray Donovan. I like The Wire. And I'm going, you're not listing documentaries here, guy.
Yes,
I hate to, and I don't want to bring the bad news on you, but Ray Donovan is not a.
There's no such person.
There's no such. He doesn't exist. I've seen him be Sabretooth. He's made up. It's make-believe.
But it's a little bit easier now than it was 35, 40 years ago for me, because I became a fan 40 years ago.
Right.
That's when it was really tough.
Right. Well, because that's before the era of sports entertainment, when this idea of we are tricking the audience to some degree still existed.
Yes.
So to be a fan was almost to be a mark, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of split. There were people that really did believe it was real, and then there was people who say that's fake. And as a wrestling fan, you knew that it wasn't real, but you had to defend the fact that it was real. It was a really crazy dynamic.
Funny, because that's you can't sit there and get into the intricacies of it.
Yes.
You know what it is, and you know why you're watching, and it doesn't change anything for you. But in order to argue that wrestling is good, you have to argue that it's real.
Yeah, and I'll even go a step further, and a lot of old school fans will know this. As a fan, you were like, all right, this stuff isn't real, but this stuff is.
Right.
So like, Salvatore Bellomo against SD Jones, that's not real. But Jimmy Snuka against Don Morocco in a cage, that's real.
That's real. Well, they're bleeding.
Yeah. And then, Sergeant Slaughter against the Iron Sheik, that's real. And the WWF at the time, I remember watching on the MSG network, like they got into a brawl in the back, and they were dropping MF bombs and all this stuff. This is on live, and Vince McMahon's like dropping F-bombs. I'm like, well, this is real.
This has got to be real.
How can it not be real?
This has got to be real. And I guess even when you had your like wrestling arguments, was it like, well, the stuff they're doing up north, the WWF stuff is fake, but the stuff down south, NWA.
See, now you're getting real deep.
That's real.
Well, because I've told this story on the air. The first time I ever saw pro wrestling, I was at my buddy Jeff's house, and we were young. It was on a Saturday, and he was watching Georgia Championship Wrestling. And my fondest memory is.
And you grew up in Jersey, right?
Yeah, I live in Jersey.
So you're in Jersey watching Georgia Championship?
Yeah, because it's on cable TV.
Perfect.
So my first memory of wrestling is Gordon Soley interviewing Tommy Wildfire Rich.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, wow, this guy looks like David Lee Roth from Van Halen.
Right.
That was my thought. And then I was asking my friend questions, and he goes, have you ever watched wrestling before? I go, no, but this is the stuff with Bob Backlund. He goes, whoa, he got all offended. Like, wait, no, that's WWF. Like, that's fake. This is NWA. This is real. So I'm thinking, well, all right, so the stuff with Bob Backlund and the Samoans, that's fake, but this is real.
Right.
And then they go to commercial, and then it's Gordon Soley interviewing Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer, who's got a chain and he's spit's coming out of his mouth, and he's talking about the guy from Van Halen that I just saw, Tommy Wildfire Rich. And from then on I was hooked.
You watched it. See, like because I grew up completely WWF, and then watched WCW because it was on or whatever, but still always WWF loyalist. So really, I mean, when I was a tape trader, that's when I got aware of Tommy Wildfire Rich's. Like, I mean, I got the magazines, of course, so I knew who he was. But really, I didn't see Tommy Rich live in a wrestling ring until he was in the Full-Blooded Italians in the ECW. So
that's like, over a decade from when I saw him.
Yeah.
Completely different.
Right. So somebody who has that deep of a history in it, where do you stand on the Legends thing? I feel like there's a very hot debate right now that people feel like, propping up the older guys is putting down the younger guys, right?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I'm a hypocrite. I talk out of both sides of my mouth when it comes to this topic, because I do feel that there's a time where you use your legends the right way and the wrong way. We saw with AEW Dynamite with Jake Roberts. Jake Roberts is not getting back in the ring and wrestling, but he's going to bring somebody with him.
Although it would be great if he showed up next week and he goes, Cody, It's me. He drops a DDT. Are we building to a Jake
Yeah,
Roberts?
it comes in with
Cody Rhodes?
the red sweatpants. No, but and then we're seeing in the WWE with Goldberg and The Undertaker, and I think there is a line that you should at some point. But when Undertaker came out, I get goosebumps.
Nope.
Like when you hear that music and you see him doing that entrance, and people are like, enough already, enough. When it comes to this time of the year, I'm waiting for what storyline the Undertaker is going to have towards WrestleMania. So for me, I speak out of both sides of my mouth because at some point, yes, the legends need to stop and they need to get that other part of the roster over, but I still get excited for the legends.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are Undertaker matches that after the match, maybe I'm like, I wish he hadn't come out and done that one. But before the match happens, I've never been upset to see the Undertaker. I mean, until he decides I don't want to wrestle anymore, and it's not like he's coming out and doing it, every 2 weeks.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? He's here for a moment and then he's gone. And I mean, I could watch the Undertaker wrestle until he's in his 70s if that's what he wants to do.
And I think at this point he can name the time that he wants to step back.
He's earned it.
He deserves that right to say to Vince McMahon, you know what, this year I'm not doing it.
That's a pet peeve I have too. That there are fans that go, well, do you think the Undertaker can carry a match? And I'm like, how would either you or I know if the Undertaker can carry a match? What is that knowledge based on that you're giving me? You've not been in the ring with the Undertaker. You don't talk to the Undertaker. You haven't seen the Undertaker train. You have no idea what you're talking about. Can the Undertaker carry a match? I don't know. How would you know? Let's watch the match.
All I hear, like I know Mark Henry every once in a while bumps into him. They're friends.
Sure.
And he'll tell me he looks phenomenal. Like he's in great shape.
You're right.
And when I hear that, I get excited.
Yes. Yes.
Hey, the guy's working out. He looks good. Does it really matter what age is? This isn't professional sports. This isn't the NBA where Michael Jordan can't go out on the court and perform.
He's playing a zombie.
Yes, he's the dead man.
I mean, he's the dead man. It's fine. If anybody can pull it off, like can Dolph Ziggler come out in pink hot pants when he's 60 years old? That would probably be a stretch.
Yes,
but. The Undertaker can do it. He's created this character that can exist agelessly.
And there was a time, and I know actually Sting heard it and took offense to it, and this is years ago when he was with TNA.
Oh, boy.
I went on a rant that he shouldn't be TNA champion.
Oh, yeah. Didn't he
He no-sold me in an interview.
Oof.
Yeah,
which had to suck for you because you're like, I grew up with the NWA Stinger. I was a Stinger. I was a little Stinger.
And I also said that I thought that,
you never should have beaten Flair at the Clash.
Like Sting was a teeny bit overrated. And when I say overrated, when I say overrated, people take offense to this. I don't look at Sting as like a top 10 guy. And a lot of people do. I just don't.
Oh, you're starting it again.
And I actually did it with Shawn Michaels. And I actually had to address it with Shawn Michaels.
You said he's not
a
top 10 guy?
I said that they had the WWE, I'm sorry, actually came out with a compilation DVD with the top 50 greatest superstars.
Sure, I remember.
And Shawn Michaels was number one.
Okay.
I was like, Shawn Michaels isn't number one. Ric Flair is number one.
That's the NWA just dripping through those old veins of yours.
Well, that's actually the young vein of yours being the WWF mark, but I digress. And I actually said in the interview, I brought that up because, hey, if I'm going to say it on the air, I'm going to also say it to the person that I'm interviewing.
And you should.
And he said, well, you know what? In our match at WrestleMania 24, I'm the one who called that match. I called that match against Rick. And
you
know
didn't
what?
know that, did you?
No, I did not know that.
How
at
would
the
any
time.
of us know that?
No.
Yeah.
And it's true. And Ric Flair's the first one to say that if it wasn't for Shawn Michaels. But, but that's the fun of pro wrestling.
By the way, I love, too, that Shawn Michaels was like, he because some guys would go, well, if that's your opinion, that's cool. And Ric Flair is great. He's like, you should know I called that match.
Yeah,
like, good for you, Shawn.
You know what? And that's
Shawn is the
fine.
man.
And listen, I love the fact, that's my personal opinion. If somebody wants to come to me and say, you know what, Sting's the greatest of all time, that I'm totally fine with. I don't agree with that. But the fact that you have that opinion, that's awesome. This isn't professional sports where you could say this guy's the greatest home run hitter because here's the stats, here's the numbers, here's what proves that. You can come and say to me, the Ultimate Warrior is the greatest WWE superstar of all time. How can I argue that?
That's true.
For you, that's true.
I mean, we probably won't talk about wrestling again if I come to you and say the Ultimate Warrior is the greatest of all time.
Yeah,
Like maybe you go, we don't have much to talk about.
Yeah, that's all right. Then I'll know your knowledge, and then there's no reason to have a discussion.
But you like NXT, right?
Of course, I love NXT.
Whose brain is there fueling NXT?
I know that.
The Heartbreak Kid.
Yeah, and again, when I say something, do I love Shawn Michaels? Of course, I love Shawn Michaels. I love Shawn Michaels. He did the pose, the PWI Ric Flair pose with the with the suit on and everything. I love Shawn Michaels, but you know,
meant the Zandig pose.
but like you just said it. I grew up on a different type of wrestling than you grew up on. So I'm going to have a little bit of a bias when it comes to certain wrestlers, as you have a certain bias when it comes to certain superstars.
That's a good way to phrase it. Yeah, I didn't know what you were talking about.
I'm wrestling with an R.
Right.
And you're sports entertainment.
I love sports entertainment.
And that's fine.
I think sports entertainment is the best type of entertainment.
And, you know what?
You know who I love watching perform sports entertainment? Superstars.
Yeah, WWE superstars.
And you know what they win when they are the best superstars?
Titles
and championships.
Yeah. See, I love wrestling.
With straps.
And they get straps and belts.
I won the strap from my wrestling match. Okay, all right.
But you got to understand, Sam, that's what I grew up on. Wahoo McDaniel and Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair and Bruiser Brody, where they were trying to portray something that was as real can be.
So when Dash Wilder and I finally get into a fight, you're taking his side.
Yes.
You see,
actually, I've seen some of that already.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of that played out. But see, that's the fun side. I like arguments like that.
I do too.
Because there's no winner to the argument. So you and I can discuss. You and I can argue about Sting and Shawn Michaels till our faces turn blue.
Yes.
There's not going to be a winner to that argument.
And I love that. I love the idea of arguing. Like when you can sit. I love being able to sit down in a room. Who's better, Shawn Michaels or Ric Flair? And we could talk for 2 hours.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And then we're going to bring up like...
And by the way, you know what's great about a true wrestling fan? I could bring it up right now off the top of my head and we could talk for 2 hours. Not researched, not anything.
Just off the top of my head?
Right, just like let's...
I could say, well, Ric Flair, 16-time world champion. Like, again, it's not like... a team winning a Super Bowl 16 times. It's a little bit different.
It's a little bit different, but it
wrestling.
means that. But a wrestling fan knows what that means, though.
Yes.
Like a wrestling fan knows that you're not sitting there going, well, he's the best because he beat the most guys. You're sitting there going, it's not an accident that somebody becomes the world champion 16 times.
Yeah.
And there's a reason that promoters put faith, and you could go as deep as you want to, but being a 16-time champion is the thing.
Yeah,
like it's a note of success.
And when you talk about Shawn Michaels, all you have to do is bring up the matches that he had with The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25 and 26. One of my all-time favorite matches at WrestleMania in Seattle with Jericho
or with your guy at WrestleMania 24 that he called the whole thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this.
Uh-huh.
Was there somebody that you met or interviewed where you were like you fanboyed out? Like where you were like, wow. Was there that wrestler that you were like a little nervous going in, or had just a tremendous amount of excitement?
Well, there has been, especially early on, it was all of them. Early on, it was everybody. But I don't know who would be the one that I was like, man, this is big. I still. Like it's people that I go like, okay, like I mean, I could talk to this person for 6 hours. Like how do I figure out how to have a conversation with this person? Like even like Triple H, like sitting down, because when you really think about what Triple H has done in professional wrestling, like that's a guy who is unmatched. And I'm not talking about in the ring. I'm talking about overall. And you talk about a guy who has proven beyond all adversity of opinions, proven with everybody in the world talking about why he got to where he is, and well, he married this person, and he buried that person, and he did the, and you look at this guy who's just trudged through bullshit forever for the sake of putting on a good wrestling show.
Yep.
To the point that we get to now. I mean, I thought, the biggest crowd reaction that I think I ever heard live was in Madison Square Garden the night Triple H came back. I think people forget how big of a good guy Triple H was in that moment. And that was probably the peak of his good guyness. But announcing he's in the Royal Rumble, coming back, going into the Royal Rumble, the internet starts to turn on him and starts to feel like he's burying people and brings up the behind-the-scenes Stephanie stuff and all this stuff. And then he goes with it. Like that wave.
Yeah.
He goes with it and he turns heel. And all this time that, like, you're sitting there going, you know, at home, like the smart fans, quote unquote, are going, I want to boo this guy because I know what he's doing behind the scenes. He changes his character to give you a reason to boo for him on screen. And that's when he starts feathering his hair and he drops the denim and leather and he just completely changes who he is and evolution becomes a thing. And, you know, you could sit there and go, well, he buried this person. He had to beat that person. He had to beat that person. And at the same time, you look at Batista and Randy Orton, and you can't say that he didn't go out of his way to turn them into superstars.
Of course he did.
You know what I mean?
He gets a lot of flack. I know for me, when it comes to Triple H, it's not even Triple H the wrestler, but the Triple H that is the exact Triple H that's the creative mind.
I mean,
and you know, for somebody that is an old school fan, I get annoyed a lot of times. Vince McMahon said it, and I always bring it up on the air when he had that sit down with Stone Cold Steve Austin, and Stone Cold Steve Austin brought up the term pro wrestling, and Vince McMahon almost got offended by that. We don't do wrestling, you know. It's just, Triple H is embracing that. He embraces everything. But I remember it was after one of the NXT takeovers when we were talking about, once again, NXT takeover outdoing the last takeover. And he says, when pro wrestling is done right, it's an art form. He won me over with that line.
Yeah.
Because I said, this guy gets it. This guy gets it. He appreciates it. He embraces it. He's not embarrassed by it.
He's not only is he not embarrassed by it, he's the biggest wrestling fan in the world. And he's a genius.
Yes.
Like, you know, for forever, we talked about how Vince McMahon is a genius. Vince McMahon is an unparalleled genius. I mean, he's an American genius. I think Vince McMahon...
He's a great business. He's a great business.
He's a genius business. I mean, I think Vince McMahon deserves to be on that. And of course, I do. Right? I get my paycheck signed by him. But I think Vince McMahon deserves to be on that list of Steve Jobs and Walt Disney and Vince McMahon and like these creative business geniuses. When you take a creative mind and you also have that business side of it where they just change their industry, that's a super rare thing. But at the same time, I don't think people are talking yet enough about the fact that Triple H is a genius. You know what I mean? And you can say as much good or bad about anything he's done throughout the decades he's been in wrestling. But the guy's a genius, number one. And number two, the evidence of that is the fact that it's now been years that takeovers are the best shows in wrestling. Like, you could watch whatever you want on Wednesdays. You could look forward to Wrestle Kingdom all year long. There is no consistently better wrestling show than takeover shows.
I will say this about takeover. I think I've seen the best takeover until the next takeover.
Right.
And they lose, if you look at each takeover, they lose some of their talent. And
Right.
man, if you look at the takeover, and it wasn't that long ago. I mean, what, you're talking about 5 years ago that the takeover, completely different roster, completely different talent base.
And you could have easily said that the Finn Balor, Kevin Owens era of NXT, you're never going to beat that. And you're like, okay, well, we lost them all. Well, okay, you struck lightning. You caught lightning in a bottle with Gargano and Ciampa. You're never going to beat that. Oh, we got the Adam Cole era now.
It's amazing.
And you're elevating. You're elevating. Like, you look at the elevation of Velveteen Dream, for example, who I think will probably be the one who goes to take over in the world title match with Adam Cole. And I think by the time we get to that takeover, you'll be like, yeah, of course Velveteen Dream should be, you know, the number one contender for the title. But that, I mean, the elevation of that character that feels organic, but it's really quick when you think about it.
I honestly, and I've only interviewed Triple H once, and it was years ago.
Yeah.
And, you know, I actually saw him talk to you, and you could have introduced me to him, but you decided not to. I understand.
That was weird. I guess I must have been busy. Maybe I didn't see you there.
No, we were actually having a conversation. He interrupted, didn't even look at me, and walked away. And
but he
you were
talked
fine
to
with
me?
it. Yeah, of course he did.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember that. I didn't remember you were there. I remember that conversation.
This is actually
with
a true story. But anyway.
Where was it?
It was, I think, before SummerSlam.
That's great. Yeah, no, that's. I can't sit there and sounds like that's. Does that sound like something I wouldn't? Does that sound like something I wouldn't do? No.
No, which is fine. And you know what? The strange part about it, I get it. I totally understood it when it happened.
What can you do?
But I would really like to have a conversation with him just on that, just on the fact that of his appreciation for pro wrestling, because I think he's doing a great job of attracting that younger fan, keeping a fan like you happy,
Yep.
and also giving a nod to somebody like me.
Yeah.
Because in the one battle that NXT is having with AEW is that, and I believe for myself on Wednesdays, I prefer AEW over NXT. You talked about TakeOver. That's a completely different situation than the weekly product. But the one fan that NXT is definitely getting on a week-to-week basis is the fan that's my age.
Yeah.
He really has
Which
been
is
able
really
to
interesting.
grab the old school fan.
Which is interesting because NXT doesn't feel like it. I mean, it's being done in a completely new way, right? And all the characters feel modern and feel contemporary.
'Cause they are.
Right. It doesn't feel like this throwback old school thing, but I think it's the mentality.
Yes.
It's the mentality of the way the product is presented that gets older wrestling fans to go like, yeah, this is wrestling.
NXT would have been successful 35, 40 years ago. You could put that show on that they're putting now and put that on 35, and it would be the #1 pro wrestling show.
Well, I mean, it's like the little things. It's like stipulation matches actually mean something. We're going to build towards a cage match, and there's going to be a reason to have a cage match. Well, this match had the takeover. It had interference. We need to find out who's better between these two. Let's put up a steel cage, not just, okay, well, we got to do another thing. We got a steel cage. We got a ladder. We got a table. We got, like, all of this stuff matters. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just smart. You lose Rhea Ripley from TakeOver because she's got a WrestleMania match. So what do? What if we put 6 women, who I also think that NXT has the best women's roster, but you put 6 women in a ladder match, and that makes sense because it's like we're finding out who the #1 contender is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, Wednesdays it's a great.
It's great. Wednesday's a great night.
You know, and I say I prefer AEW over NXT. That's not taking anything away from NXT because I absolutely love NXT. There's just something about AEW right now that's really got my attention. And you know, and Bully says, you know, Bully Ray says it's the crowd. It's, you know, that they're doing it in an arena full of people. Maybe that's it.
I think there's something to that.
But I do love both those shows. Wednesday nights is definitely the must-see night of pro wrestling right now.
Well, pro wrestling has gotten us to the point where not only can you hear Not Sam Wrestling twice a week, if you're on Patreon. If you just like the free show, you're only getting it once a week. But if you're on Patreon, you can get it twice a week. But you can get a pro wrestling show on SiriusXM every morning. And I mean, I don't know how many of you guys know this, but morning is the #1 time slot in radio. I watched Busted Open go from, I mean, when I first did the show, what were you on? Were you on twice a week?
We started out once a week for an hour, then we quickly went to twice a week. And I think that's when you were on.
I jumped
twice
on
a week.
at twice a week. It was a co-host who we won't mention because, you know, let's erase the history. It wasn't even, it was we will mention your other ex-co-host, but the first ex-co-host,
Well, there was
history.
2. Well, yeah,
ancient history.
he didn't use his real name. You know,
It's a gimmick name.
Yeah, he had a gimmick name. So, you know, I am really Dave Lagreca.
Right.
Yeah, and there really was a Doug Mortman.
Right.
So,
and then,
yes.
yeah, I feel like the Doug Mortman era is when Busted Open really started to pick up some steam. And that's when, I mean, I remember the Live for 5 campaign was happening. You were just trying to get on 5 days a week, and you ended up going 5 days a week in the afternoon first, right?
Yes.
Right. And that was with Mortman.
Yes.
Yes. And then so much attention is put onto this Busted Open show. Doug Mortman goes, and he goes to other parts of SiriusXM where he is incredibly skilled.
He's a VP.
He's a VP.
Yeah, he's like,
and like when there is stuff that goes through his department, and I'm not, again, I don't blow smoke. When there is stuff that goes through his department that I've dealt with, it's like perfection now.
yeah.
And I go like, I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that he's there. But you jump on, you're like, oh, well, who's going to replace Mortman? And you get Mark Henry. You get Bully Ray.
Yep.
You get Tommy Dreamer.
It's great.
You get like people who you'd be like, wouldn't it be great to get these guys as a guest? And you're like, well, what if we just did the show with them? You're like, yeah, that sounds good.
It's pretty cool. And now we're on live 6 days a week because we have a Saturday show
6
now.
days a week and in the morning.
In the morning, and we have a podcast as well, the Busted Open podcast.
Which is doing great.
Yeah, it's just doing really good numbers. So I'm very, very thankful.
And the Busted Open podcast every day too, right?
Yeah, it's every day.
Incredible.
It's a 45 minutes to an hour every day.
Well, I already know that all the Notsam shills in the Discord room are listening to Busted Open. So if anybody's not, tune in, SiriusXM podcast.
I think all wrestling fans can take a page from what you and I do. And this is where I give you a lot of credit, Sam. And Jim Ross taught me this, and it's something I go by. If you're not successful, then I'm not successful. Like, I mean, we are truly a community when it comes to pro wrestling because we have to go against all the outsiders that don't believe in what we're doing. So we need to bond together.
Yeah.
So whether your favorite show is AEW or NXT or Raw, SmackDown, I don't know whose favorite show would be SmackDown, but let's just assume that there is somebody actually out there.
It could be.
I wouldn't want to have a beer with that person, but maybe there could be somebody whose favorite show is SmackDown. Let's all like band together. We're fighting the same fight.
Right. Talk about
Yes.
wrestling, disagree about wrestling,
Yes.
argue about wrestling, agree about wrestling, celebrate wrestling. But just at the end of the day, go to bed happy that we live in an era where we can have these passionate wrestling conversations all the time.
Yeah, and you know what? If AEW is doing a good job selling tickets and it's getting good ratings, be happy for that. You know, if it's NXT, be happy for that because ultimately it's healthy for the business when everything succeeds.
That's right. That's 100% right. Thank you, Dave. We'll do this again.
You like my Becky shirt? I
I
figured
do.
I'd wear my one WWE shirt that I have.
Yeah. I don't like it. You do like the 40 wrestling. How many days in a row do you do wrestling
Well, right
shirts?
now this is day 34.
And you'll go till WrestleMania?
Go to WrestleMania.
And I'm sitting there looking. I'm like, would you wear one WWE shop T-shirt? Even that one's a bootleg
It's not,
one.
yeah, it's not I do have a WWE shop shirt.
What is it?
It's a Bray Wyatt shirt. I already wore it, so that's my one
it's done.
WWE shop. And I
They do buy one. They could do BOGO deals. They do
Oh,
buy
that's
one,
right.
get
There was
one.
a buy one. There is another one. It's somewhere in there. There is another one because there was a buy one get one free.
Well, maybe I give you a Not Sam Wrestling shirt. That
Can
counts,
I?
right?
I was kind of hoping you would.
I'll
'cause
find one.
I will wear it.
I'll
proudly.
find one. Oh, you want to get death threats? Put on your Sam Roberts T-shirt.
Did I give you a Dave Lagreca guy T-shirt?
No, but I'll wear one. I want a fat head too.
I don't even have a fat head. We have a fat head in the studio, but I don't own a fat head.
There was somebody at Sirius that told me because AEW is coming to Newark, and they said that you said you can bring my fat head, but make sure you take care of it because I only have the one
That's
for the studio.
That's the only one I have is in the studio.
So people are just making them on their own, or
Yeah, we have this guy, Scott in Long Island,
Uh-huh.
who has been just out of the kindness of his heart, has been making these fat heads and sending it to people so that they have them.
Tell
And he's
Scott
not,
to send one for the Not Sam studio.
well, I mean, the poor guy. I mean, I'm not asking him to do anything. And it's just that he's doing this because he's a loyal Nation member and he wants to spread the word of the Lagreca head.
I'll throw one up.
You would?
I'll throw one up.
You know what? All right. I'll make sure that you get one
Let's
somehow,
do it.
some way.
Thank you, Dave Lagreca.
Sam, thank you, man.
Thanks for listening. Follow at Not Sam on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Rate, review, and subscribe. This has been Not Sam Wrestling. Not Sam.